So to our friends just joining us, hello everybody, good morning, welcome to SG Innovate's New Frontier. Now, as the name New Frontier suggests, today, now we will be exploring the panel, Reimagining Your Future in Deep Tech, why it isn't such a mammoth task. Now, before I introduce our panelists and our moderator for this session, I just want to let you know that we do have many established speakers all through today. Now, later on, I'll give you an overview of the platform as well, but let's dive straight in to our first panel for today. Our esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased firstly to introduce Dr. C. Mohan, Shaw Visiting Professor, National University of Singapore, and Distinguished Visiting Professor, Tsinghua University. Dione Song, Chief Operating Officer, Love Bonito. Kester Poh, CEO and co-founder, AI Chat. And Siu Chu So, Managing Director and Group Head of Consumer Banking and Big Data AI Technology, DBS Bank. Welcome, panelists. Moderating this session, we have Jessica Dorsey, who is the Chief Happiness Officer, Global Head of HR from Palo IT. So with that, I'll hand the time over to Jessica. Jessica, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me virtually and physically this morning. And thank you, SG Innovate, for putting together such an exciting event. My name is Jessica. I'm head of HR at Palo IT. We are a global innovation consultancy, and I will be a moderator today. About 20 years ago, at a time that we could qualify as a peak of techno-optimism, MIT Technology Review published a list of the 10 most prominent innovation space that would change the world and the way we work forever. And in that list, you would find biometrics, natural language processing, data mining, robot design, brain-machine interface, and whatnot. 20 years down the road, while obviously technology has made significant breakthrough improvement, to the point of questioning the validity of Moore's law, it is still slower than anticipated, mainly regarding our working systems. Nevertheless, whether you are pink, white, or blue-collar worker, or if you are a student, you have already been impacted to a certain extent by the emergence of technology in your workspace. To discuss how those changes are impacting our work and how we can upskill, learn new skills, whether it's tech, non-tech, to enter the deep tech industry, I have 4 experts and technologists joining me this morning. Dione, Kester, Suchu, and Dr. Mohan, thank you for being here. Before we kick off the conversation, would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us a little bit more about your organization and what you do. Dione, can we start with you?
Sure. So everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Dione. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Love Bonito. For those, I guess, who are not familiar with us, we're one of the largest direct-to-consumer women's brand in Southeast Asia. So we do everything, right? Vertically integrated from fashion design, technical design, to technology, data, retail operations as well. And, I think tech, I guess, has been something that's been growing quite a lot. In this space, right? Everything from omni-channel experiences, right? How we think about data, right? How do we think about personalization and automation, especially in the fashion and retail space. That is, I would say, quite old-fashioned, right? And a little outdated. So I think for us, it's really been about that. Overall, sort of company spiel, we're around 250 across the region, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then serving markets in North Asia, Australia, and the US. So a quick background for myself, I actually started my career first in banking and then was really drawn to the startup ecosystem. Joined Zalora, Rocket Internet for 4 years in the e-commerce space, and then Sephora, also in the e-commerce and marketing space. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Kester?
Hi everyone, I'm Kester, co-founder and CEO at iChat. We are a AI-powered customer experience platform. We help brands to automate their business process in customer service, marketing to e-commerce through popular social messaging app like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp. And right now we are operating in, HQ is based in Singapore. We are also operating in Indonesia and Malaysia, helping brands across Southeast Asia to drive a better customer experience through chat.
Okay. Thank you, Kester. Suchu?
Hi everyone, my name is Suchu. I am working for DBS Bank, the bank who wants you to live more bankless. I run a technology team that is focusing on bringing all the consumer banking digital assets to all our customers across the various markets we operate in, as well as the big data and AI platform at DBS, focusing on bringing data and intelligence to support all the customer experiences that we have across all our client segments.
Thank you, Suchu. And our last panelist, Dr. Mohan.
Hi, I'm here temporarily in Singapore for about 6 months as a visiting professor at NUS. I'm a hardcore database guy. So I spent 38 and a half years in Silicon Valley working for the IBM Research Lab, where relational databases and SQL and hard disk drive and various other major innovations of IBM originated. My claim to fame is in the bowels of the database system, nitty-gritty things. All my life I've been a techie. I've never been a manager. So I care a lot about long-term technical careers and technical ladder as opposed to just the management ladder in organizations. I've also spent almost 3 years based in Bangalore as the IBM India chief scientist, and later I'll discuss some other aspects of my background.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Mohan. Let's kick off the conversation. And my first question is for Kester. Kester, in the beginning, in my introduction, I talked a little bit about how technology has disturbed the way we work. From your perspective, which industry, which roles are more at risk in Singapore and globally?
Right. Well, I think those industries and jobs that are that involve a lot of physical tasks that are in a predictable environment and involve many repetitive tasks are more prone to getting disappear along the way because there's automation and digital transformation happening. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I think that one of the industry that will be at risk, or some of the job within that industry will be at risk, will be, I guess the first one will be drivers in the transportation, jobs like taxi drivers or Grab drivers, etc. It's slowly going to be replaced by self-driving cars. Yeah, which you heard about the Tesla coming in, and eventually, all these jobs can actually easily replaced by this kind of self-driving automotive. Even truck drivers or delivery drivers. And as the rise of the even like drone delivery, you can actually take over this job and do it more effectively, deliver your parcel in a very short time, right? And another area could be in the retail space. There's a lot of also self-serve these supermarkets. There's one in Alibaba has launched their own self-serve supermarket, and even recently in Singapore we have the Cheers convenience store. They roll out one of the first unmanned AI-powered convenience store in Tampines. You can just walk in and take your stuff, and you auto make payment. Everything is cashless. You don't need a cashier in the store itself. And day to day, if you visit restaurants, you see less of these waiter and waitresses around, because you can actually just scan the QR code, or if you go to McDonald's, you used to have a lot of this counter staff. Right now, you can just walk up to the kiosk and self-serve and order your food. So I think all these, as you can see, is very common among all these jobs, is that it's very low skill, and it's usually are those in a very low income job category. So these are the typical ones that I guess is going to be replaced in the very near future.
So it's from what I hear, it sounds that it's more towards B2C, right? So those jobs you mentioned that required less skills, so those could be the one more at risk. We will be discussing a little bit later what people can do to address those gaps. But would you say, from your understanding and from what you see in the market, that there are industries or jobs that are safest than others?
Say first, I guess those that will involve more expert area, things like healthcare, education, you will not be replaced overnight because you still need the expertise and a more complex kind of skill set. So these are, I guess, is a space that they're safer, I would say.
Thank you. So, Chu, prior COVID-19, we already talked a lot about working from home, human-machine collaboration, the gig economy. Those were really big topics, not only in the United States, but in Singapore. We could feel an emergence of those topics coming up. From your perspective, and I know it's a really difficult question to answer, but from what you see in your role, from what you see from speaking with other experts in the topic, where will we be in terms of work in about 10 years' time?
I would say that COVID has opened everyone's eyes to the feasibility of remote engagement, and that has opened up vast opportunities for every company to tap talents from everywhere. So that I think is here to stay, and it really make everything possible because talent is a scarce resource. And if a company is able to tap talents from anywhere in the world, that enables any companies in any countries to actually come up with any products that they can imagine without being limited to what kind of talent is available within the borders that they are confined to. So I think the remote working and what has been proven to be possible as part of the disruption we experienced during COVID has opened up many opportunities in terms of possibilities for companies as well as an individual. I think as an individual now the opportunity is available for your talent to be used everywhere, regardless of the boundaries of countries. That is what I imagine will be possible. Of course, there's of course the tax and the regulatory considerations, but apart from that, it really, if you can overcome those barriers, the fact that the remote working is equally effective when enabled by technology, that opens up huge amount of possibility for corporations and individuals in tapping into all sorts of skill, whether it's deep tech or anything else.
Thank you, Suchu. Dr. Mohan, I am certain future of work, and more specifically, the future of intelligent work must be a recurrent topic in your classroom at NUS. What's your insight?
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit of a contrarian on this. While it's true that a lot of things could be done remotely and so on, when it comes to collaborative work and also when it comes to dealing with people that you haven't dealt with before in a face-to-face fashion, I think there are going to be problems. It's easy to, in the steady state, after you've gotten to know people by shaking their hands and this and that, in a one-on-one personal interaction way, it's a lot easier to do the work remotely. But in order for people that are new to the organization to really get the culture of the organization and things like that, I believe it's really important to still have a lot more of the face-to-face kind of interactions and the kind of, things that happen by chance, serendipity that happens when you run into people and you're hanging around with them, drinking coffee or this or that. Those sorts of things are going to be very hard to recreate in the virtual space. And even education, it's easy to get distracted if you're watching something on television and all that than when you are physically present in the class and the lecturer can see you, and the body language and all that comes across much better in face-to-face interaction. So I actually insisted that my students come to class in person at NUS. But of course, it's a seminar course, so it's not such a big thing. But so there will be these long-term effects that are not known during this COVID period, where a lot of people have managed to do many things in a remote way. I come from Silicon Valley, having lived there for 4 decades. All sorts of hype is there about the possibilities, but when it comes to reality, even self-driving cars in the city environments are that much more difficult to accomplish than highway kind of self-driving. And so there's a lot more stuff that needs to be worked out from the legal perspective also, as you two mentioned. Even, how taxation will be done if you're working remotely for an organization. I don't know whether all of that has been quite worked out or not. So.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. I think you're right. Both Suchu and yourself, speaking about compliance, the regulatory bodies will have to decide what it means to work for an organization when you're based in Seychelles, where you're based in Australia, and the core work is done in Singapore or elsewhere. So those are going to be very interesting challenges for our compliance bodies. Dione, you can't go to a Future of Work event without hearing about new roles, right? And skills such as, and I've taken note of some of them I hear quite often, such as resilience, system thinking, storytelling, learn to unlearn, computational thinking, obviously, digital literacy, and so on and so on. From your perspective, and as a leader, what do you say are the most important skills we should be equipped with now?
Sure. I'll just caveat this a little bit, right? Probably definitely not, I think, a technologist. I would say I think I'm someone without that technical or I think deep tech experience here on the panel. I think experts are really all beside me. But I think when it comes to skills as well, right? I think if we think of what ensures that people are resilient through different times, I would say two things and maybe two traits. So the first one, really that curiosity, I would say, right? That genuine interest and just passion in knowledge. I think that's super valuable, right? I think to what, I think Dr. Mohan and all were saying, I think knowledge and everything, it's changing so quickly. If you have the genuine passion, you're just constantly digesting, understanding, distilling, right? And then really learning to adapt and apply new knowledge. And I find that, I think, number one, I think just super important, right? That curiosity and growth mindset. Number two, and I think especially in today's time, even pre-COVID and now I think through COVID, I think what we're seeing is that it's becoming an accelerant for transformation. So what this means is that one needs agility, right? That first, that mental agility to be actually comfortable to put in a new situation, learn to unbox yourself, right? If you had a certain skill, for example, and I speak for myself, right? Maybe in a marketing area. Marketing in the past was so different. If you think about marketing today, programmatic, right? We didn't even learn this, right? In school, 10, 15, 20 years ago. What did we learn? We learned ATL, right? We learned basic marketing. How do you think about out of home? How do you think about radio? But the fundamentals of marketing is actually still the same, right? It's about the funnel, the customer funnel, the conversion funnel. How do you think about everything, right? From awareness all the way to conversion. That is applicable, and it doesn't matter what technology or medium you're using. So I would say two would be really that agility when it comes to mental agility, the agility when it comes to the intellectual agility. And I'm sure I think Dr. Mohan and all can speak to this a lot more when it comes to programming languages, right? Understanding just the foundationals and the fundamentals and then reapplying it, right? Even when languages and systems, right, and platforms change.
Thank you, Dione. And what would you say to an applicant in your organization wanting to join your team, having absolutely no background in marketing as an example, but really very much of a passion and curiosity, as you mentioned? Where should she or he start?
I would, and actually, in fact, we have several applicants, right? I think like this across all different domains and functions, right? From tech, product management, data, actually, to marketing. Really, I think first, I think it boils down to that passion and curiosity. Again, I think if you're interested in industry and you're learning, knowledge is aplenty today, right? I think the beauty of today's world is that it's really easily accessible, right? You can go onto the web. You have synchronous learning, you have asynchronous. It's accessible. A lot of it actually is free, right? So I would say the world is quite a level playing field, right? Then yes, if you want to understand a bit deeper, I think to Dr. Mohan's point, yes, right? I think you have structured courses that allow you to interact a bit more, right? To really understand the nuance as well. But to be honest, knowledge is actually free and truly accessible. So I would say first the passion, right? Putting the interest, doing actually the actual hands-on work, to apply it, to learn it, and upskill yourself. I would say that is the first thing. And the first thing I think that we look at for all applicants. Then number two, as well, I think really we call it grit, right? I think really looking for that grit and sisu, which means actually it's a very, very deep resilience and grit, right? Meaning that you're pushing through difficult situations, right? Challenges. And for us, I think that is super valuable in an applicant, right? Because times are always constantly changing. Situations, I guess, can be really challenging. Today, you might be solving problems that you've never seen before, right? In your classroom, in academic world. But to be able to have that grit and sort of push through, yeah, I would say that would be the second one.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mohan, this question is for you.
Yeah.
Assuming I have absolutely no technology background or education, how do I start the journey of upskilling? Who do I speak to? Where do I go?
I would say, echoing what Dione said, that passion for learning new things and having the soft skills also to be able to go talk to people without any fear and such would be excellent attributes to have. It's in this context I actually wanted to talk a bit about my spouse. She did a bachelor's in English literature and then a journalism diploma. And then she comes to America after we get married and says she's going to do a master's in computer science. So until then, she had never done even college level math. And so she had to do all these prereqs for a couple of years, both in math and computer science, and then actually do the master. So it took 4 years. These are doable, and she's not the only one. In fact, we have a good friend. She went through the exact same thing. We are all Tamils from Chennai, and she had done the English literature thing and then comes to America, and then she does again a master's in computer science. So where there is a will, there is a way to do things, and not all of the things require tremendous amount of investment. As was said, there are so many courses now available for free, and you can be doing this from any part of the world. But if you have the ability to interact with people and get to know them and so on, you can get mentored by the right set of people. And there are, things like, for instance, data prep in the AI space for machine learning to do the, labeling of data and such. This Indian outfit called National Association of Software and Services Companies has estimated that's like $1 billion opportunity. So there are things like that, many somewhat mundane things that you can start out with, like being an operator, the good old days kind of things, some of which are disappearing, by the way, in the context of jobs disappearing, systems management and database management, like admin kind of jobs, they are being automated with AI technologies. So, but there are still enough opportunities out there to begin the journey to go from being a non-technical person to a technical person. And of course, after a while, you can even go wind up how old you are, even getting a degree in this space. Not all the things require degrees. Many people learn on the job lots of things.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. I really like what you say about not everybody needs a degree. We will touch on education a little bit later. Kester and Suchu, I have a question for both of you. In my experience, if you attend a dinner with pretty flat conversation, it's always a good idea to start talking about how AI and technology is taking our job away. Promise, you will have a lot of opinionated views on the topic. What is your take on the topic of automation, and what do you say to those with dystopian views? Would you say it's a zero-sum game? Suchu, can we start with you?
So I think technology can always be, double-sided. It can be used for good or for bad. So if we focus on how we can use AI for good and how we can continue to educate all the people about AI ethics and, to actually harness the power of AI for good, then I think it is going to unleash a lot of things for humanity. I think firstly, AI can be used to remove all the mundane work to free up humans to do more meaningful jobs. AI can also be leveraged for, replacing human for dangerous jobs that we should not need to a human to do. AI can also, for example, help people with disability. It can narrate what it sees to enable and empower people with disability, for example. And AI, for example, can also help to revolutionize many industry, whether it's banking, to enable people to actually be more financially literate and prepare for their financial futures better, or in healthcare where AI can make healthcare available to everybody regardless of their income level, which country they come from, and so on, by making it cheaper and more accessible, including performing of robotic surgery. So there's always two ways to go about it, but if enough is done to educate everyone to unleash the good power of AI, then it will be good.
And whose responsibility is that when it comes to educate on the power of AI? And I must say that when you say that there are so many good things that can come out of it, it reminds me of how the whole automation industry started, right? So in the beginning, it was very much to help the agriculture industry, and it had done amazing work at making it easier for farmers, easier for the whole industry. Those were really hard work. So whose responsibility it is to educate people on AI? And when you said having a better life, better works, is it true for everybody?
I think, it's everyone. It's the school, it's the family, it's the government, it's the media. Everyone is involved in this whole education process to make sure that we raise the awareness and we channel our effort in the right direction. It's everyone's duty. It's not one particular person.
Thank you, Suchu. Kester, can we have your views on the topic?
Yeah, I think for iChat, what we experience, we also talk to the organization, and some of them are from the customer service team, some of them are from the marketing team. So far, our automation tools have already helped them save a lot of significant time. But the good thing is that I don't see my clients start laying off people because of that. They are looking at investing in the productivity of improving the whole productivity, and so that their CS team, for instance, can focus on more complex stuff rather than those low-value questions that they need to reply to the customer. So as the customer service team has more time, they can just focus on serving the customer better, and as a result, the whole productivity increase. The employees happier, and naturally they will serve your customer better, and as a result, the whole customer satisfaction has improved and allowed them to sell more. And because of that, in fact, there are a lot of new jobs also being created out of this new technology itself. Last time, back 10 years ago when I first joined the industry, we only know about like front-end engineers and back-end. But nowadays, there are new titles like a conversational UX designer, which it doesn't exist like 5 years ago. So it's something new, and it is just evolving. Even we have AI trainer, because every machine, you also doesn't mean that you have machine and you will take away all the job, because you still need someone to maintain and service the machine. For our case, for chatbot, we have the AI trainer who will moderate what the bot is replying, to making sure that it is answering correctly. Otherwise, you need to train, just like training a new employee from an intern to an executive to a manager. So same thing, it requires a human involvement in that. Yeah, and so I guess it's a good thing. It's not really like taking your job away. It's just that make your life easier, and you get to do another kind of job that is easier, and there is more high level rather than a very low skill kind of job.
Yeah, of course. So Dr. Mohan would like to add a little bit.
Yeah. So I've been giving for the last year and a half a presentation on the state of affairs, past, present, future of AI. I strongly suggest people go take a look at this, because one of the important things that I raise over there is this notion of national level strategies, and in the case of China, they even have city level strategies for AI. In the case of Europe, They even have multiple countries level, like European Commission, as well as there's another entity called DPAI. These are ones where they talk about not only the technical things that need to be done, but also how to sell the whole concept to the public and things like that. There's even a US law now that I refer to it in my presentation that has a definition of what AI is all about. And so there are many ways in which this is being addressed, as was mentioned before, that everybody has a role to play in promoting what it means for, definitely some jobs will go away. It's no different from, the non-sustainable kinds of things like coal and so on disappearing and getting replaced with renewable energy sources and things like that. So there will be pain involved. There's no question about it. Yeah, there will be new kinds of jobs created, but for people who want to still continue to do whatever they've been doing, life is not going to be easy. I mean, this is part of evolution and so on. So in this context, my wife has been reading about how Singapore transformed, right? How the kampongs got replaced with HDB flats, how even burial grounds got turned into buildings and so on. So there will be some growing pains along the way, and that's evolution, really.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. I'll be moving to the second part of this conversation, which is focused on diversity and education. Suchu, you have been an advocate for diversity and inclusion for many years. From your experience and what you have seen, what are the tactical things to create a sense of belonging for women in a male-dominated tech industry?
I think there are three things. Firstly is the culture of the organization, the tone that is set from the top, right from the board and the CEO, what they think about diversity and inclusion practices in the company itself. That is the key pillar. Without that, I think it's a lot of other things will not happen. I think the second one is around awareness. The enablement and the training of everybody and creating the awareness amongst all the people in your organization about unconscious bias. Interesting thing is that if you go around asking people, are you biased? Most people will tell you, no, I'm perfectly, unbiased. When I make any decision, it's always balanced and everything else. But if you look at, some of the tests, one of the tests, implicit association test that was created by Yale, the result is that 90-something% of the people who took that test are proven to be unconsciously biased. So unless you belong to the great 10%, it's natural to assume that most of us are unconsciously biased. That's why it's called unconsciously biased. So having this awareness that you might be unconsciously biased and you should really try to introduce a different perspective into your own decision making, your judgment and thinking and perspective is very, very important and is a very first step. And I think the whole gender diversity and inclusion agenda will be much progress if every person and every organization can make a lot more effort to really push this agenda to make everyone rethink about their own prejudices and biases, no matter where they think they stand today. And of course, lastly is around role models, the mentors, the allies who will actually stand up and champion the agenda, right? So for the women agenda, I think the many people are lacking role models. How I can be that kind of person, how I can be that kind of leaders. If more women actually spend more effort to ensure that they come up and show to the younger ones how they can be somebody that they can never imagine they will be, that would help to advance the agenda. And for the men, I think being an ally to help in this topic, I think is a very powerful message because for example in technology, I would say that more than 70+% of the population of techies are the male. So if the 70+% doesn't actually play any part to champion the balanced representation, things are going to happen very slowly. So the allyship is another very important agenda.
Thank you, Suchu. It's a critical topic, and that's not just a topic for organization. It's a topic that concerns everybody. So, staying on this topic, I actually just have an additional question. Assuming I am a man, I am a manager, I'm going to work on Monday. What is the number one thing I can start doing on Monday to create a better environment for female in my office?
Ask your female employee what you can do to help them succeed more in your team. Actually, you might hear something that you will be surprised with.
That's a very, very good tip. Thank you. Kester and Dione, have your company been working from home since COVID-19? Have you guys been back in the office, or are you still working fully from home?
We were working from home, and actually we've rolled out a fully permanent, flexible sort of like work arrangement. So now I guess it's a bit split, right? I think we're fully giving employees the choice. So we did a full survey, right? I think everyone preferred sort of like 2-3 days working from home, which was great. I think myself actually included, because I think working from home gives you the time for a lot of teams to do a bit more deep work. I think if you're doing more analysis, right, insights, strategization, right, that's where the time and space and mind space is actually quite useful. So what we're doing now is actually to give teams the full autonomy and freedom to decide which days they're coming into the workforce and the office space. So they fully decide. So today, I think the office space is really quite transforming. People come in for two main reasons. One would be for a lot more meetings and collaborations, right? So it's very, very targeted. It's very specific. If you have a team department meeting, a performance management session, or a cross-functional brainstorming session, right? That's where people come in. And number two would be a bit more engagement. So what was interesting was that I think even sort of like early this year, I would say the most introverted teams, I think, in data and technology were like, oh my goodness, we're craving human interaction, right? We actually want to come in. Can we have a day in the office where we're just meeting up with each other? Maybe it's not even work, right? Just getting to know each other, just getting to play maybe some games, right? Team bonding activities and so on. So that was actually really interesting. And I think we were fortunate enough to have moved offices actually mid last year. So we could create a new office space really for the post-COVID world, right? So a lot smaller desks, right? Very few sort of like a lot smaller workstations, a lot more meeting rooms, and just open breakout spaces, just for more meaningful interactions and meetings, yeah.
And have you noticed, since majority of your employees have been working from home, although some of them want to come back from time to time in the office, have you noticed a shift as for how learning is decided within your organization? Is there a move towards online learning through Coursera, Udemy type of platforms, or do you guys still organize learning within your organizations?
I think for us, perhaps being a much younger organization, we've never had, we have a few more structured in-person learning sessions. I would say a lot of the learning is actually on the job. A lot of the learning is also digital. So I think we were fortunate in that sense that it was quite easy to transition. But I guess maybe I think just to your point, right, I think earlier as well, when it comes to that remote setting, beyond I think learning, I think one of the key skills and key traits that I think it's even more important today would actually be that power of communication. That was really very underrated in the past, right? I think a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstanding can happen in the remote setting. When it comes to communication, how do you write, right? How do you write someone on Slack, which we use, right? How do you write someone on the chat apps? How do you phrase something, right? Because you can't actually see tone and you cannot hear that tone of voice. So little nuances like that, I think really important when it comes to sort of that verbal articulation as well, right? To ensure that when you're on your calls as well, are you as expressive, are you emotive, right? How do you facilitate a brainstorming if it's virtual as well? And I think for us especially, and sorry, just digressing a little bit, right? But I think that this was actually quite an important point, right? That power of communication, especially when you have cross-cultural teams, where there is so much cultural nuances, right? How do you ensure that when I'm speaking to someone in Indonesia, right, in Malaysia, it doesn't come across as maybe rude, right? If I'm writing a cut or short sentence, for example. And how do we ensure that in that sort of quick, bite-sized communication that's entirely virtual, we give enough context, right, and understanding. So again, there's no sort of like information asymmetry, that everyone across the organization can actually function very harmoniously. Yeah.
Thank you. We're just going to get Kester's views first.
Yeah. So for our side, because the nature of the business, we technically can operate everything fully on digital. For our client, some of them we never even met face to face before. So for us, we even started working from home before the official lockdown. For safety reasons, and everybody can operate as usual. Some of our offices are still not open yet in Indonesia and Malaysia especially. That doesn't really affect us, but I do have also colleagues who requested to come back office because it could be a bit noisy at home, especially those with kids around. But I think, yeah, in general, yeah, we are adapting to this hybrid way of working style. So what we do is like for major discussion and brainstorming, we'll gather everyone to come in the office. But otherwise, we'll take like shift to come in the office, but it's not like compulsory. We are quite flexible about that. In terms of the learning wise, I think like Dione has mentioned, I think the communication is very important because you really, it's very hard for you to tell from just a text message what this person is actually trying to say, and a lot of miscommunication might happen. So that's why we also come up with a daily morning scrum meeting where everybody will highlight what's going on and is there any roadblocks and stuff. I think communication becomes more critical, especially if you are working remotely. Yeah.
Thank you, Kester. Dr. Mohan, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that having spent so much time as a technical guy, essentially all my professional life, when it comes to research and doing technology transfer, innovation and such activities, I firmly believe that those sorts of things also require people actually building up the trust in each other, and so that means that not all of it can be done online. So people do need to get together and establish a certain rapport and credibility and all that through those sorts of physical means, if you like, in-person kinds of interactions. So I really believe that also means, as Dione was saying, you do need to have good skills. Even though I've been a technical guy all my life, I keep telling people, in order for you to be successful, have the kind of impact that your ideas that you are firmly believing are worthy of getting, you do need to be able to sell your idea. So the managerial kind of activities or marketing kind of activities, you need to be able to perform. And some of that also could be harder to do if you are relying on remote way of doing things, because some people might not do very well in such a setting. Even in an in-person setting, some people may be shy and so on, but at least you can encourage them more in an in-person setting than, I believe, in a remote way of doing things.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan. We only have a few minutes left, but this question is very important, and I will stay on you. The technology industry, very true in the Silicon Valley, even more true probably in Singapore, we have faced a shortage of talent for many years. And while obviously this is a highly complex topic requiring support from various socio-economic stakeholders, I wonder, from your perspective, from what you have seen in the United States, from what you have seen here in Singapore, what can we do to make sure that no one is left behind in this future economy?
I think that also goes back to some of the diversity kinds of discussions that Siu Chu was making before. In fact, it's interesting, right? A country like India, where there may be a lot of things that are problematic, doesn't have so much of a diversity problem when it comes to women participating in the high-tech sector. The problem comes when it comes to, at the higher levels of the echelon, whether it's a technical ladder or management ladder. Especially on the technical ladder, they don't have enough role models. They also make it, they find it easier to work normal hours and go through the management chain than being able to go up the technical ladder. So there are things like that that you do need to worry about. And some of the things that people should be aware of with AI, for instance, is depending on what you train your models with, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you don't have enough of a diverse base from which you do the training, there can be lots of problems with the kind of recommendations that are made. And there are many well-known cases of this, the way blacks get treated in the US and things like that, because they are always at the receiving end of a lot of imbalanced way of doing things, even in the courts and so on. So there are many aspects to this, as you say. It will require much more time than a minute that we have.
Yes.
We have to get into Q&A from the audience.
Thank you. I have two last questions, and that will be for everybody. Please try to keep it as short as possible so we can open the room for questions. But my first question is related to trainings, right? We have said a lot about how training can be encompassed in our careers, where we can find learning, how we can demonstrate curiosity. Dione, what's the last training you have taken?
Okay, I think this was last year. It was a proper course, a training course that I attended, entirely virtual, so it's called Coactive. It's a coactive coaching course. So I think it teaches you more around leadership, right, management, methods as well, coaching, right, both coaching and executive coaching sense, but also coaching when it comes to your role, right, I think as a manager and as a leader of your teams. I think what was really interesting actually for this course was that it was entirely virtual, and it was amazing. The amount of connections that I made was actually quite deep. So I think this one actually showed me that there is possibility in facilitating a structure like this, really with the right facilitation and the right setting. Yeah, so that was actually quite mind-blowing. I didn't expect that.
Thank you, Dione. Suchu, what's the last training you have taken?
This is actually quite a difficult question for me because I'm someone who is actually always looking for knowledge to make myself better, in everything I do. So I'm constantly, going for a lot of online courses myself and actually reading many books. So I can, actually like last year I decided to actually take up some certification from AWS and Google Cloud and as well as in Coursera from INSEAD on, blockchain and so on. But actually my hobby is actually reading. So, I would say that I train myself to change, actually upgrade my own knowledge by reading a lot of different books. And I think one of the recent books I've read, two books actually. One is called The $1 Trillion Coach, which is on the guy called Bill Campbell. So I highly recommend this book. And the second one I just finished is called Think Again by Adam Grant. So I really love these two recent books I have read.
Thank you, Suchu. Kester, what advice would you give to your younger self?
For myself, I think also to the audience here, I think a lot of young budding entrepreneur or good people who are thinking of switching job. I guess you should start early. If you think of doing something, just go ahead. You should come out of your comfort zone. So don't hesitate too much. Just try. Even if you are thinking switching of job now to deep tech, I guess you can do it something that is after work or during your free time. Don't necessarily need to be 100% on it until you are feeling ready. Just make the switch. Yeah, set a timeline and go for it. Like myself, I set a timeline. I need to do something on my own at the age of 30, and I just make sure I save up 6 months. I can sustain without any salary, and I just make the move. So same thing. If you thinking of going into another area, explore another area, just go for it.
That's what Dione mentioned with grit, right? Go out there and just do it. Mohan, we'll finish with you. What's the piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh, well, I stopped programming quite a long time ago because I felt that I was better at doing conceptual things and still work with other people on the nitty-gritty stuff. So I'm not fearful of nitty-gritty, but I actually didn't do that much programming. So maybe, if I were to revisit my life, I would have spent a bit more time doing programming in addition to doing innovative work that means developing algorithms and things like that. But I would like to tell the youngsters that they should do more homework. There are too many people in Silicon Valley included where youngsters think that they don't need to do enough homework, they just can do seat of the pant design and things like that and not worry to learn from the past work. There are so many things about even AI that have been done decades ago. This field is by no means a young field as many people would like to believe. And I've seen this happen over and over, even virtual memory being thought of as something that VMware came up with. Guess what? IBM did it eons ago. There are so many such things that people should take the trouble to learn, otherwise they are bound to repeat the mistakes. So.
Thank you very much to the four of you. Let's open the room for questions. We have had a fair bit of questions, so that's great. We have 10 minutes left, actually a little bit less than 10 minutes. The first question is regarding mid-career switcher. Once we have finished our new training, what are the ways for us to get our feet in the door other than internship? Who would like to take this question?
Well, I mean, one thing you could do is get involved in some NGO, that sort of thing. If money making is not the primary goal of this foot in the door, then I believe there are, with all the open source based ways of doing things that are out there as possibilities, you could get involved in an ongoing project and gradually build your credibility in such a space.
Can I just add on
Of course.
very quickly to this one? I do think as well, and I think we've seen this, right? I think in actual scenarios playing out. Sometimes I think just understanding, hey, what is that line of attack to where you want to be, right? So example, if you want to switch into maybe data science, right? If you've never been in that data field before, what is perhaps that more practical course, right? Perhaps is it being maybe going into BI first, right? Or starting first as a data analyst, and just understanding what is that practical course, because a lot of times also, if you think about it from an organization perspective, right? Especially if it's not your current employer, they may not want to take that bet. Right? So I think you also do need to be practical, maybe strip out that diva attitude sometimes, right? And be like, hey, I guess if I want to get there eventually, I will need to do these 2-3 steps and be okay, I think, doing it, right? And having that grit again to push through, because it will ultimately get you to your final destination.
Thank you, Dione. Anyone else wants to answer this question? If not, we have plenty of other questions. I like this one. Do tech companies value nurture new employees, beginners, or hire only people for the right job? So this question is more towards, are we still hiring for skills and degrees, so accreditations, or are we hiring for attitude? Suchu, would you like to take this one?
Actually, I think to create the most innovative solution, you need to hire people from different background, whether it's a skill or degrees they have obtained. So, if, for example, at DBS, we hire lawyers as programmers. So you not necessarily need to have a computer science degree in order to be a developer in the organization. And from this, I think you create the most diverse and innovative solution. And how we do that, actually, I think we, of course, as we said, the people need to have the mindset to continuously learn and pick up stuff. But we also have a lot of structured program that has been curated to enable people to pick up all these skills that they may not have.
SAP used to hire lots of physicists for the longest time. So I believe most of the founders, or maybe all of them, who were IBMers before starting SAP, might have had a physics background. So Germans tend to think that if you can handle physics, you can handle anything in the world. So, but even IBM Research, where I worked 38 and a half years, in the last few years, the guy who's now the CEO, when he was running IBM Research, Arvind Krishna, he decided he wanted to change the mix of work going on in research and also the background that people bring in. So for the first time, he started hiring even people with just undergraduate degrees. Prior to that point, only people with masters and PhDs used to be hired in research. So there are so many different ways, and we always were told, don't hire somebody just for a current opening. find people who have the attitude and the flexibility and all that to be able to switch topics. And even I personally went from being a hardcore database guy to blockchain to AI these days. And I stick my neck out and say, I'm going to give a talk on some new topic. That forces me then to learn things. Otherwise, it doesn't sort of force you to do things. You don't want to make a fool of yourself in front of people in the subject area that you are getting into. So that will by itself cause you to do more work than you
Right.
would otherwise do.
Thank you. We have Shuling asking a question regarding accepting candidates who don't have any relevant experience. I would love Kester to answer this question because as an entrepreneur and hiring manager, I'm sure you come across a lot of resumes, right? Would you consider interviewing someone who is not from your industry, who doesn't have a tech background, but who shows a certain level of curiosity, of growth mindset?
Yeah, we took, been always been looking out for interns who are like passionate and having good attitudes. These are the areas that I think we value most. I think it's especially when talent is so hard to find in our space. What we do is we find someone with good attitude and has the potential to be trained to be the person that we want, because it's really hard to find the ideal candidate, the person. So what we are, our strategy is to find someone who has some basic knowledge of what is something relevant. Doesn't need to be exactly the role they are looking for. For example, someone who is in project management can eventually also take up a sales role. Because his previous background might help one way or another. And we just groom this person up and send him for courses and guide him along and handhold him until a certain time he will be able to run on his own. Yeah, so that's the approach that we are doing now.
Thank you, Kester. Kelvin is asking a question for Suchu. I love what you said on diversity. Do you feel it would help the industry if there was a special department on diversity?
I hope every department is a department on diversity. That's the aim, I think, for it to be really effective and pervasive. Every single department has to be a department on diversity.
IBM, we used to have training every year that every employee had to go through in this topic. You had to watch a video and get involved in a quiz and all that, with different situations being presented and how you would deal with it. So, yeah, it has to be pervasive.
Ingrained into the culture, right? Perhaps maybe champions in each department who are really the advocates and ambassadors, right? I think if we take another way to view it, I think for retail as well, I think there are certain companies with an omni-channel team, right? But end of the day, I guess if you really want to disrupt yourself, there shouldn't be an omni-channel team, right? Every single business unit needs to have an omni-channel mindset, from data to even retail, right, to marketing. If not, it doesn't work. And I think the same thing with diversity, but just ensuring that you have champions and advocates, right, in every department.
Thank you very much. We only have a minute left, but I came across a very interesting question, maybe something we should have addressed in the beginning. I'm trying to find it, but basically the question is, what is deep tech? We have been speaking about deep tech for quite some time, and in the introduction, we mentioned what deep tech is, but can I get any of you to maybe re-explain what deep tech is?
I guess something that's not very obvious, right? That requires more work than just learning the syntax of something and then just regurgitating it. So something that requires bringing together different technologies. Even if you look at AI, for instance, now, there's this combination of AI with IoT and various other things, imbibing or imbuing, I guess, AI into any place where there is software. You can add elements to that software which does various things in many domains that makes it more self-organizing or self-managing and things like that. So in that sense, it's pervasive, as we just mentioned. Actually, in IBM, there used to be a mobility unit, and later they decided to disband it because that had to become part of every unit that already existed. And so having it as a separate entity doesn't guarantee that other people that should incorporate it will pay attention to this one unit. So people.
Mohan, I'm so sorry, I will have to interrupt you. We are unfortunately out of time, but it has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned so much. I hope you guys out there have learned as well. Feel free to reach out to us. We are on LinkedIn, and we will be more than happy to answer any question you have. Thank you, Dione. Thank you, Kester. Thank you, Suchu. Thank you, Dr. Mohan, for being with me this morning. And thank you to all of you who have participated in this very early morning to this panel.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, our wonderful panel. A big thank you as well to our moderator, Jessica Dorsey. Once again, a big thank you, Dr. C. Mohan, Dione Song, Kester Po, and Siu Chu So for the wonderful, wonderful session